Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Ken Marino, who plays Ron Donald on the hilarious Stars comedy series Party Down. Ken, I'm a huge fan of the show. I was in the original run. I remember watching it, and I was so excited when it came back. I know there were like a million fits and starts, it seems, about potentially reviving it and
Yeah.
maybe coming back. I guess, like, for you, when did it sink in that it was really actually going to happen, that you would do this again?
The truth is well, thank you for saying so many things. And I am a huge fan of the show as well. So the fact that we got to do a third season was such an incredible gift. We've been talking about it for years and years and years. And then finally I was like, I gave up all hope. And as soon as you give up all hope, something happens. And so there's a moral there. Give up hope and things happen. But we I didn't think it was real until we showed up on set, and then and I was like, I put the tight white tee on and the pink bow tie. I'm like, all right, we're on set, so money is being spent on this. They spent money for this pink bow tie, so now I know we're gonna at least shoot something for the day. And then we shot the whole season, so that's when I thought it was real.
What was the first thing you shot as Ron, returning Ron?
The first scene was I think the first scene was the first scene of
Okay.
this. Yeah, I think my first scene was, it was either that scene where it was like literally the first scene where I'm talking to Tyrell and a couple of other people, and then Martin comes in, or it was everybody by the Nitromancer poster, and we're like, hey, a reunion, who asked for that? And it was one of those two scenes. They were
Perfect.
back.
You mentioned like being a fan of the show. I guess, like, as we're talking here, just in general, like, this is a great season. The third season of this Party Down is really great. But there's always, I feel like, maybe apprehension if you're coming back to something, right, that people have a great memory of or a fond memory of, that it's not going to live up, I guess, to the memory that people had when they enjoyed it, right? So I guess, like, yeah, like, was that a concern for you at all going in, and like, how did you think about that?
I didn't think too much about like, hey, is it going to be good? Because I knew that John M. Baum was writing it again, and if it's filtered through John M. Baum's brain, the chances of it being more of the wonderful world of Party Down were the odds were high, or the odds of it being good were good, and so I was not worried about that. I mean, but then when I read the scripts, I was like, yeah, okay, exactly what I hoped it would be. Super smart, unexpected, everything you wanted it to be. The same, the voices of the characters are clear and real, and exactly how you would hope they would be. And so, yeah, you're in good hands when you're with N. Baum and Etheridge and Rob Thomas and Rudd and Adam.
Yeah, for
You're in good
sure.
hands.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to beat that combination, as it turns out.
Yeah, it's a
Like,
good group of producers.
yeah. So, like, playing, I guess, like, how did you think of Ron having evolved, or did you even think of this? Like, I mean, how did you think of Ron having evolved in the 13 years where we haven't seen him? I think I talked to Adam, and he was like, the idea was like to pick up this as if there had been 13 other seasons of Party Down that we just never saw, right? Like that kind of thing where you just kind of immediately dropped in. I guess so for you playing Ron, did you think of him having evolved at all, or like how did you think of the character from where we left him to where we meet him here in the revival?
I think Ron, more than anyone in the show, you kind of expect him to be somewhere in the same, you know, place that he was in. Ron is a guy who takes a couple of, one step forward, 27 steps back. Any small success he has, he either, he blows it up, or just, the dark cloud that, that floats over his head, blows it up. So I didn't, to me, it was, Ron is achieving, he's trying to achieve, a goal of being in power, and that's always been his goal. And I don't think I always thought he would remain in the party down world, and try to ultimately become owner, but that he was going to kind of stumble across in the 13 episodes, or I mean into the 10 or 12 seasons that we didn't see. He would just hit a bunch of stumbling blocks, but he would never give up. Ron is to a fault, optimistic and determined to achieve his goals.
So how do you like? I love your. It's such a great. You play him so well, and I think it's such a great. In the first episode, there he says something to Adam, or you say something where he's like, I think you say, if you work hard, the system pays off. It's just your line reading is so funny. It's such a goof, because like no, and he has obviously this black cloud over him anyway.
Yeah.
I just the relentless optimism I find so fascinating. I love the way you play it. I guess like how do you kind of like keep go like I feel like you find new ways to be relentlessly optimistic as him, and I just found that like fascinating in the performance. So I guess how do you kind of think about that and do that basically?
Well, I mean, I think if I understand your question, I mean, like you try to come up with different variations of how to become hopeful, because if you keep leaning into the same sort of choice for the character, it becomes redundant. And I think that Ron is a complicated, multi-layered dude who tries every angle to succeed, and there's a thousand ways to succeed, and thousands of ways to succeed and thousands of ways to fail, and Ron does both. I mean, he tries for both. He tries to succeed, and he fails in thousands of ways.
Very very creative ways of failure for Ron. I know your background. I know you went like you went to NYU, I think, and you went to the Strasberg School for drama, and you took a course there. I guess like you are so well known for fun, like comedy, like obviously this and the other two I know you have like now as well, and like you've done a million comic roles that I find really great. Does having the drama like that training help you with the comedy? I guess do you find that? Do you ever go back? Do you ever think back to it even now as like even if you're not doing a drama, let's say?
For sure. I mean, not to get too heady about it, but I mean, all those tools. To me, the most interesting way to play any comedic character is to find the real truth of what's going on. And so I always find that it's better to play the absurdity of a scene as dramatically as you can. You can heighten certain things, you can do physical things that are funny, but to try to ground that and make it come from some sort of real place. And certainly Strasberg and taking acting classes that were leaning towards more dramatic things at times were helpful, and I always try to use that stuff. I think it's important.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and the proof is obviously, I would say, you don't have to, I would say in your work, because I think it's like really, really remarkable. And like, not like you said, not to get too heady. And you mentioned this, like the physicality of your performances, Ron, is amazing. You have so many, for just incredible pratfalls in the first episode. After Ron breaks his finger, I believe you go in to shake James Marsden's hand. And I rewatched that again today. I just die laughing at it. It's your fall is just incredible. I guess like how when you're doing something like that, how do you rehearse? Like just basically, do you like rehearse that, and do you like how do you work like make sure you're not like giving up, like make sure you're not hurting yourself, but not actually like pulling back and giving up the fall of it? I guess if that makes sense.
I mark it. I mean, yeah, yes, you rehearse it. I mean, I have something in mind. Anytime I do anything physical, and I've hurt myself many times throughout the years because I like to do physical things, but I try my best to kind of figure out what the playground is. If I'm going to hit my head on the table, I just want to make sure that there's no, hard surfaces that the people designing the table and putting cushions on forgot about or whatever. But so I try to like see the places where I can look like I'm hurting myself that won't hurt me, and then I go, okay, I'm going to fall. Well, what's behind me? Am I going to hit my head? And I try to mark it just like I guess dancers do or whatever. And then I try to then say, okay, that's my playground. Now let don't overthink it, but just find physical things to do in this space because you're safe,
Right.
and feel free to 100% just go in any direction you want to go in, as if it's the first time it's happening, which
It's
is
yeah. I mean, it's like again, it's remarkable to watch because it's just so present. And you do this. I feel like over. There's another scene later in the. I think it's the fourth episode when you have when Ron has the food poisoning, which is another tour de force moment, I would say, for you and Ron. But before he's end up pooping in the stock pot, I guess you have another fall in the bathroom, which I just also found like the way you crumble to the ground is another killer physical
thank
comedy moment. Really good.
thank you. Yeah, that was, I think it was episode 5. I directed
Five.
4, but in 5, it said he walks into the wall, and so I was like, oh great, I'm going to make a meal out of that. Basically, my approach to any sort of stage direction, that is, I always like to, um, uh, make a big choice physically, and then instead of waiting to do it, I try to make a big choice physically, and then that I think is funny and grounded to the character within the scene, because it's saying, he walks into the wall and then collapses, and then let the producers or the director come in and say, hey, pull it back, or they go, that's great, do more of that, and so now I know, it's working in some way. So that particular day was an example of that. I just was like, all right, I'm gonna really make a meal out of this. And then we did like 7 takes, and each time I remember Dan Etheridge coming in going, that was great, do another version of that. I was like, okay. So,
Do you try to like save little things to surprise your fellow actors? Like that scene, I know you have I think Adam's in that scene with you, but like even like in these like the one earlier with like James Marsden and stuff, do you like even when you're rehearsing it and kind of like are you always trying to like save something so they're
yes,
surprised in the moment too?
yeah, yeah. I don't try to show the entire thing during rehearsal. Again, it's like, for me, it's like marking it. If a director wants to see the full, scene and all the emotion and all that stuff, that's fine, and I'm happy to do that. But I always like to hold back until we start shooting, so everybody is reacting to something that is as if for the first time.
Did you have, I mean, I imagine then yes, that would be the answer to this is shorthand, but like when in the food poisoning scene, you have, I think most of the cast or most of the cast is in the kitchen as Ron is kind of, relieving himself all in the pot and stuff. That sequence again, incredibly funny. And the way you've built that whole episode up, his food poisoning is really, I'd say, a remarkable fit of physical comedy throughout. But I guess like what was that sequence like? And then like, yeah, like how did you kind of figure out the timing even of like him going, like the dry heaving into the pot before actually sitting on the pot?
Well, we I, I try to understand the frame in which we're shooting. I try to understand, like, if it's mostly, if the camera is mostly sort of covering my stuff, or if I'm going to mess with anybody else. Like, if there's a camera on somebody else, I'm not going to do something super crazy, because then I'm messing with their take. But if it's like, if the hero shot is on me, I'll open it up and try to give the other actors more stuff, or just kind of the editors more stuff to kind of play with. But yeah, I guess for that one, yeah, it was all about just, at a certain point, Adam has to slide me that pot. So we kept it loose, and then we would just fill it up with real moments. That was the hope. And there was one point where I think I did. In the moment, I had to pass some gas, and I did, and Jane laughed, but you could sort of see it, and then they cut away. Because I mean, we were putting it in anyway. We were putting sound effects in anyway, so I figured I had one locked and loaded, so it happened.
Might as well. Do you? I mean, like, is there a lot of you met? Like, obviously, the writing of the show is so good, and like the cast is, I guess, like how much improving are you doing, or is that even not the right word for it? Like, I mean, how much do you guys like kind of just play off each other as a cast and as an ensemble
You know,
beyond what's written?
a lot of people think Party Down. They go, oh, it's a lot of improv on that show. And the truth is, certainly the first 2 seasons, we shot every episode in 4 days, and there was no time to improvise. Like, did people put a little handle on the beginning of a line or the end of a line? Sure, maybe. And did somebody throw out maybe a little something here or there? Maybe. But like 99% of the time, it's John Embaum's brilliant writing, and it just feels so real and so off the cuff, right? And then the same goes with this season. Like John Embaum did not miss a beat. He was writing just as funny and beautifully and heartfelt as he was the first 2 seasons. And so all we had to do is sort of honor that text, and lean into the characters that we were comfortable doing. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, there were times, I guess, when we'd open something up a little bit, but most of it is just beautifully scripted stuff by Embaum.
Yeah. Do you have like, I guess, like what coming back to play Ron here in the third season, and hopefully for more, because I think like the show could easily go on if you guys had the time and in scheduling opportunities to do so. But for the third season here, I mean, what did you love about playing Ron this time, or what like did this opportunity to replay him, I guess, or play him again, give you any newer insight on the character?
I would say more that I'm older and I've learned a lot in the last 10 years as an actor, 12 years as an actor, that I thought, I have more confidence as an actor. I understand filmmaking more. I understand, how to, build a scene, build an episode, uh, in terms of, from a director's perspective, and, looking at it from how things are shot. And I'm just a more confident actor. And
Yeah.
so to get to play Ron again this season, was just this wonderful gift to be like, hey, let's do another season of this guy, now knowing what Ken, what you've learned since the first 2 seasons, which were, was, 12 years ago. So I feel like I brought some more just knowledge as a performer, as a comedian, as an actor to the part.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I think the proof is in the work, because it's very funny, and you get the pathos of Ron, I think, incredibly well as well, and it just is like a great, like an amazing character. I feel like, so it's really,
Yeah, he's a sad character, but
yeah,
yeah, I just love that. I just love him as a character so much because there's so much going on, and he really does mean well, and he wants the best for him and the people around him. He's just an enormously flawed character.
yeah, he really is. I read an article you did with, I think, GQ, and you were like, would you like? It was like the concept, or the idea of the article was just like, you're really good at playing a particular type of like asshole, basically, right? Or at certain times. But I don't think Ron necessarily is. And I guess, would you think that he is also, or no?
I think Ron can be an asshole, but he doesn't mean it. He just is trying to assert authority. And so he's more needy and less. He's more pathetic. He's not a bad person
Right.
at all. But he thinks that if he can discipline people, or speak to people a certain way, that he can achieve the things he wants. But I don't think he's an asshole.
No.
um Whereas there are other characters that I've played who are straight up terrible human beings.
Yes.
I think Ron has a heart, like the Grinch at the end of the Grinch. He's got a big heart. He just doesn't know what the hell to do with it, and a big dick apparently.
So it'd be great. That's a great way to end it, and hopefully, we'll see more of that in.
Tune in. Watch episode 7 of 6 of season 1, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
We'll see. Hopefully, maybe more. Like I said, if there is a season 4, I certainly will be very excited to see what happens. But Ken Marino, star of Party Down, you can watch all the episodes on Stars. Thank you for doing this.
It was a pleasure talking to you.